the exploration of space will go ahead. And it is one of the great adventures of all time. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory on Mount Everest was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Virgin Galactic is on track to become the world's first commercial space line. And if you've ever dreamt of joining the incredible group of pioneering astronauts, your opportunity has arrived. During your adventure, you will accelerate to a breathtaking 3.5 times the speed of sound. Then, in the silent tranquility of space, you will experience weightlessness and views of our beautiful planet that will change your perception of life.
One of my passions or reason for wanting to fly in space is based on what these guys that do it say. And they talk about it for the rest of their lives, about wow, that was life-changing.
The rocket motor ride is a minute and a half or so, and it's exhilarating. It's like nothing else you've ever done. When that motor does shut down, you get this instant karma of weightlessness. And everything you feel in your body is the same way. It's wow.
Our first Virgin Galactic astronauts are booking their own place in history as pioneers of a new space age, and for them, the journey has already started. I've had some incredible adventures in my lifetime, and space is sure to be the greatest one of all. I am going, and I hope you will be joining me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that. As a startup, we don't have much money to do market research, and I actually missed the show of hands when David did it. So if money was no option, if money was not the problem, and you knew you were going to come back safely, how many people would like to escape the Earth just for a little while? And that's pretty much everyone, which I would expect from this audience, actually. It's very unusual, speaking at a conference or any event, actually, that Virgin Galactic isn't the coolest thing on the agenda, but I was looking today, and I think space travel today is moderately cool compared with everything else that you've got, which is a bit worrying for me. But nevertheless, you know, Virgin Galactic is here to transform access to space, and to transform access to space to benefit all of us here down on Earth. It's an overdue transformation, but better late than never, and I think we can pretty confidently say at the latter end of 2013 that we do stand at the dawn of a new space age. It's going to be very different from the last one. It's going to be using a lot of the good things that those courageous, innovative governments came up with going back decades, but we're going to take it to a new place. And one of the things that I hope that you saw from that film is that, you know, despite Virgin's reputation sometimes, that this is far from a PR stunt. This is something that is extremely real. This is one of my favorite photos, actually. It's probably one of the most unusual photos you've ever seen. You may not know that, but it's got three pretty much unique elements, things that have never been done or seen before, and certainly not all together. On the left-hand side of the screen there, as you're looking at it, is the side of what we call the Gateway to Space. It is the big terminal building, terminal hangar facility at Spaceport America in New Mexico. It was designed by Norman Foster. It has purely been built to take people to space. That's the only reason Spaceport America exists, commercial space, private space. And it's a beautiful building, it's ready, it's there, and waiting for us to move in. At the back of the picture is the second unique feature, which of course is the world's first commercial manned spaceship, Spaceship Two, VSS Enterprise attached to its carrier aircraft. And that again is very real, it flew down there. And then at the front, I think probably the most exciting thing about this project is some of the maybe 100 or so of the almost 700 now, very lucky, very fortunate people from 57 countries around the world that have taken the plunge, sent us a check, and thank them for that, to reserve their space or their place on VSS Enterprise to experience space for themselves. So this is a very real project. And what I thought I'd do first of all is just to tell you a little bit before I go on and say sort of why are we doing it and what's the longer term implications for all of us in this room, just to tell you a little bit about what those people, and I hope all of you eventually, are going to get. And as I do that, sort of make clear, why this technology is different. So you'll start from Spaceport America, but rather than launching vertically with a huge explosion at ground level in a rocket, you'll actually take off from a runway, but you're going to be sitting in a small spaceship. Well, actually, I say a small spaceship. It's got 6 people in it, 2 pilots at the front, but plenty of room in the cabin. And that spaceship is attached, as you can see, if you can make it out, between the 2 fuselages of our large carrier aircraft. And you'll take off from the runway and you'll circle up to 50,000 feet. Now, that carrier aircraft in its own right is the world's largest all-carbon composite aviation vehicle ever built. It's the most fuel-efficient aviation vehicle of its size. It is a remarkable bit of kit, and it has this unique heavy payload high-altitude capability. It can take about 17 tons up to at least 50,000 feet. There's nothing else around that can do that, and it does it extremely efficiently. So you'll be sitting in the spaceship attached to the aircraft, and you'll circle up to around 50,000 feet, the cruising altitude of Concorde when it was flying. And at that point, you're going to get a countdown, and as the countdown comes to an end and everybody says, okay, we're ready to go, you'll be released. And that is a real photo there of the moment of release of Spaceship Two from White Knight 2. Now, the reason that we do air launch is because it's just so much safer than ground launch. We know how to get up to 50,000 feet very safely, very reliably, with an aircraft every time. It means we need a lot less fuel in the spaceship. It means that if anything goes wrong in the first few seconds after release, you've got a winged vehicle that can glide down, land on the runway, sort out the problem, and start again. That's very different than exploding a bomb at ground level with you sitting on the top. So you're going to be sitting in the spaceship. You've just released a little glide, probably a bit of a little lurch of the stomach as you just glide downwards. And then the pilots will say, okay, everybody happy? And you'll say yes, hopefully. And they'll give you another countdown and then press another big red button. And at that point, everything in the cabin changes pretty dramatically. You're traveling about 160, 170 knots in the glide. After they press the rocket motor and it fires from the back, within 6 seconds, they're at the speed of sound. So it's 3.5 G acceleration, front to back. Just as you're getting used to that, the pilots pitch the nose straight upwards, so you get about 3.5 Gs momentarily, head to toe. You know how to deal with it, it'll be fine. And then it's back front to back, and you keep accelerating up to almost 4 times the speed of sound, literally hurtling away from the surface of the Earth, outside the windows, the sky is changing color from blue through to purple and finally to black. And just when you're getting used to the noise, the vibration, the G-forces, the sheer sort of, I was going to say terror, but let's say the sheer thrill of it all, that's the rocket ride into space. Everything changes again because they cut the rocket motors out when they've achieved sufficient velocity for the apogee that we're heading to. And suddenly, having been weighing 3.5 times what you normally weigh, you weigh nothing at all. And that is when the real fun starts. And we deliberately built a big cabin for our spaceship, which is much harder than building a small spaceship, so that people could get out of their seats, because there's no point in being in zero gravity if you're strapped to a chair. You may just as well be down here on Earth in one. So you've got a few minutes then. Physics dictates how long, depending on what altitude we go to, just to enjoy that incredible experience of freedom. No up, no down. Everything that we sort of really dictates the way that we live has just gone for a little while. and it'll be very, very quiet. We deliberately put no fans, no machinery, no noise on this spaceship, because outside there is nothing, there's no atmosphere. And apparently, according to the test pilots, the silence of space in a silent spaceship is awe-inspiring. So the senses, I think, will be screaming again for a different reason. And just when you're starting to have fun and get used to that, you drift up to the window, and what you will see, I think, will change you forever. You heard Burt Rutan, the builder and designer of this spaceship, saying that the 540 or so professional astronauts that have been to space in the last 50 years haven't exactly been chosen because of their poetry or their emotions. In fact, they've probably been chosen for a lack of emotion and poetry. But when they come back, they don't talk about their trips for a day or a month or a year. They talk about them for the rest of their lives. And the reason they do that generally is because they looked out of the window and what they saw affected them profoundly. And I think one of the really exciting things about the early stages of this project is we're going to be taking people from all walks of life who are only there really to look out of the window. And I think they're going to come back with a voice, probably be, very, confirmed environmentalists by the time they come. Who knows? We shall see. But we know that it's a life-changing experience, and that, for me, is the pinnacle of what we're offering. And I think fantastic to actually extend that beyond a few lucky individuals who have been in the past. Where will you be? Well, you'll be at Spaceport America, as I said at the start, in New Mexico. It is a fabulous place. And, it's a great story, Spaceport America, of what can happen when you have people that have a little bit of vision, a little bit of determination, and trust each other. Bill Richardson, the entrepreneurial governor of the time of New Mexico, came and saw us in 2005. And a little bit like, I think, the story behind the 747 with Bill Owen of Boeing and one trip of Pan Am, which was a sort of you build it, I'll buy it, you buy it, I'll build it. Very much the same conversation took place. Bill Richardson, the governor, knew that he had sort of a great potential in his state to form a commercial inland spaceport. They've got free airspace, they've got altitude, they've got great weather. And they've also got a great space history, and he wanted to do something about that. He knew that he couldn't spend taxpayers' money building something like this until he had a great launch tenant, a credible launch tenant who would come in and do this well. And when he heard about Virgin Galactic and Spaceship One that flew in 2004, he came to see us, and we basically shook hands. And now we have a spaceport and a spaceship. And I think, having been at the project from the real start, standing on the balcony of the astronauts' lounge watching the spaceship launch was one of the moments for me when I thought, actually, this is real, it's happening. And you'll train here and prepare 3 days of getting used to what's going to happen to you. One of the things that we really want to make sure is, firstly, that you stay safe, so there'll be lots of that, but also that during the experience you enjoy every little bit of it. It's sensory overload. We don't want you to come back and say, I survived, but I was catching up with myself the whole time, or I was, too anxious or worried. And so during those 3 days, we're going to try and make sure that you're going to have a wonderful time, preparing you for zero G, preparing you for high G, getting used to bonding with the crew, with the pilots, so that on day 4, early in the morning as the sun rises, you're going to be absolutely set for that astronaut experience. I wanted just to go on and just talk very briefly about sort of why we're doing this. I mean, it is a slightly crazy project. Virgin, I think, historically has always liked getting involved in industries which have become a bit complacent, perhaps serving customers badly, trying to shake them up and do it a little better. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, but to do it with space maybe is the ultimate, Virgin business, but it's hard, it's really hard. And in some ways it's not surprising that only 530 or 40 people have been up in 50 years, because, it's a pretty hostile environment, and we have to do it safely from day one. We have to give a great experience from day one and hopefully even make some money eventually. And the reason that we want to do this, I think, is because we recognize that there are millions of people around the world that would love to experience space for themselves. But also, in solving some of the big challenges that we have in the next 20, 30, 40 years, space is going to matter. Space already matters. If we were to turn off the button of space this afternoon, there's a lot of things that we just take for granted wouldn't happen anymore. But if we can transform access to space, make it safer, make it cleaner, make it cheaper, then there's a whole lot more that we can do. Space-based solar power maybe becomes a reality. Mining asteroids perhaps becomes a reality. Hotels on the moon, who knows? But there's a lot of things that we could do with better access to space, and that's what we're trying to do here. Governments sometimes are great innovators, and they certainly were with space, and we should never forget that. But the ecosystem of innovation sort of failed with space because the private sector has not been involved until now. So we will stand on the shoulders of giants, I guess, in some ways, but I think bring a 21st century innovative private sector approach and hopefully just push things forward. Those are two great photos, I think. Yuri Gagarin on the left-hand side and a very recent Soyuz launch on the right, and actually very, very difficult to tell the difference between them. Let me just hurry on because I'm getting flashed red lights here. So where does this business go to? So first of all, it is about taking private individuals to space. And yes, they do pay a lot of money for it to begin with. And I think, we're very grateful for those people for stepping up to the plate because they're pioneers in a new industry, and if they hadn't done that, we wouldn't be able to do all the things that we're hoping to do in starting a new industry, which is going to be very important. And so we will give them a great ride. The price will come down if we're successful. There'll be economies of scale, there'll be a competition, better technology, so that I hope everybody in this room, if they want to, will get an opportunity to visit space. And then perhaps this Galactic Space Tours bit becomes orbital, the orbital cruise ships with excursions around the moon. I mean, there's a lot of things we can start to think about, but we're also looking at science services in our initial business because our little spaceship has fantastic potential to offer scientists and researchers a space-based science research lab, effectively, at unheard of sort of levels of affordability and also regularity, so you can do consecutive science day after day using the same vehicle. Interestingly, the first customer that booked up to do science on Spaceship Two was NASA. And then we thought we'd better have a cargo department because Virgin Atlantic has one. But for us, of course, that's about small satellites and using our carrier aircraft. We're funded to do this, and we're building at the moment a small satellite vehicle which gets launched in the air exactly the same way as the astronauts do. But rather than taking people into space, it'll put a couple of small satellites into orbit. And satellites are getting smaller and cheaper and smarter and lighter. The cost of launch at the moment really hasn't changed. And it's preventing some amazing things happening. So I think by offering this air-launched small satellite system very cheaply, very flexibly, again, we can see some great things happen in that part of space exploration. And then finally, before I stop, where do we think this really, could end? And I mean, it probably will never end. But one of the things, if we can get this first step right to prove that you can take ordinary people into space, keep them safe, give them a great experience, and do so in a commercially viable framework, then perhaps the successor to Concorde, will not be another fast aircraft, but it'll actually be a spaceship. And so our aim would be to try and push long-haul aviation above the fragile atmosphere and into space. And if we were able to do that, then two things happen. The first is that it should be environmentally a lot better. The second thing is that your journey times are going to be just slashed because you'll be going very, very fast. So London to Sydney perhaps in 2.5 hours, followed by 3 hours in immigration probably, but... as I say, it was an insanely short amount of time to talk about a very big project, but I hope it's just brought you up to date a little bit and you'll come to space with us at some stage. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Stephen. So date of the first passenger flight?
I think, it's a really hard question to answer because safety has to come first, but as you saw from the video, we're doing some big test flights now. The technical risk is pretty much out of the program. So, touching wood, I would say that if we haven't flown Richard, Sam, and Holly by this time next year, I will be a very disappointed man.
Fantastic.
Thank you.